Ladies and gentlemen, why isn't Bob wearing an Easter bunny costume today? He's going to be talking about Easter the whole show. I think he forgot. Let's see if he can make up for it with his wonderful, wonderful teaching in just a moment on The Unconventional Pastor.
Well, there we are. It's good to be back with you again. I'm Bob Greaves. They call me the Unconventional Pastor. And today, lo and behold, we're gonna we're gonna talk about Easter. And excuse me, I need to cough here a second. Had a tickle in my throat that developed just as I was swallowing that water. Anyway, it's kind of a hard topic to get away from today. I actually originally considered just totally ignoring Easter on today's show. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that might not work. So I decided, well, I would talk about Easter. And of course, Greg wanted to talk about it too. And so he kind of helped me blow a lot of the stuff I was going to talk about on his show. But, now we'll talk about it perhaps in a way where if you have any other comments or questions or things you want to specifically mention to me, we can do that. And so, send in your comments. But first of all, I want to say that when it comes to Easter and the Easter season, that I was raised in an Episcopal church myself, and didn't become one of these so-called Bible-believing fundamentalists until I was about the age of 18. And so, I grew up in a church where we talked about Lent, and we had a Palm Sunday, and we had the Passion Week, and we had special services and Good Friday and then Easter, and it was a big what to do, of course, every year. And that would be the one Sunday where we would bring home, special flowers that were available for every child to take. And I can't remember now what they were. Beautiful flowers. They weren't lilies. There's something else. But every year, we just add them to our garden, whatever, at home. But and of course, with 7 kids, we bring home a lot of flowers. But I got to tell you that as time went on, I found that this liturgical type of calendar meant less and less to me until the point where it meant nothing to me, to be honest with you. However, I still wouldn't want to give you the impression that I am opposed to the concept of any form of ritual. The truth is that I think that studies of rituals show that when people have few rituals, they actually lose a sense of meaning. And when people have too many rituals, they lose a sense of meaning. So it appears that, this balance of having certain rituals help us to focus on where it is we see the meaning, but the meaning is not necessarily in the rituals, rather it's during the rituals. I mean, for example, for many of us, we have the ritual of celebrating a birthday. And if we're parents and we celebrate the birthdays of our children, this is a time to focus on how happy we are that they exist, more, and that we're parents, that they're kids, and so by doing this on a regular basis, we help to make sure that we do take time to actually really focus on the fact that we're so fortunate and happy to have these children. So, in a sense, a birthday celebration is a form of a ritual. It's something that we regularly and routinely do. Um, so rituals can have value, and a lack of them, if you never really celebrated a birthday, I suppose it could be easy to just get so busy that you ignore the need to really confirm to your kids that how fortunate we feel, and how pleased and happy we are that we are a family, and that we have you, things like that. So it's important, I think, to recognize that there's some value in ritual. So I'm not necessarily opposed to all sense of ritual. I think life is so busy, so chaotic, and so confusing that to a certain degree, having certain regular routines is helpful to us. I think even work, the idea that for some people that the work week is Monday through Friday, and that from say 9 to 5, or 7 to 3, or whatever they're doing. That these are important way of making sure that things that need to get done get done. We schedule that in, and we just follow this routine, and that helps us to discipline ourselves to be necessarily productive in the meeting of the needs in our lives. So there again, I'm not really entirely opposed to the concept of ritual per se, but I think that for me, what I began to see was that these rituals were becoming um, the very idea, the very means of what was perceived as how grace is dispensed, how our religion is experienced, and to me, that started to become totally meaningless. The idea of Lent, I tell people now, I gave up Lent for Lent. I'm not into Lent. I I don't even see in it perhaps some of the original purpose of what may have been thought its benefits. Do not strike me as being personally useful. So I don't even think about it anymore. And then when it comes to Easter, I got to be honest with you, I haven't celebrated Easter in years, in terms of like, oh, this is a day when we're going to really focus on the resurrection, and we're going to really celebrate it this Sunday. Now, there was a time when I was a music director at a church, and of course the church would do that. And as the music director, I was certainly very attentive in making sure that we put together the music and the things like that necessary for making it a real celebration as had been planned. But personally, it was not anything that I personally saw as useful, meaningful, or necessary. So I do find myself in that perhaps that odd situation, that although I'm a person who definitely is a believer in Jesus, I really don't see this annualization of Easter as having any real expression of faith as I experience it. But then I think of where Paul talked about. Was it Paul, or was it? Yeah, I think anyway. In the text of the Bible, there's that one man considers one day more important than another person considers every day alike. What's the difference? The truth is, I can see how these can be different for different personalities, and that's fine. That's wonderful. There's no problem with that. So I don't really I don't look down upon the idea that there's others who would consider Easter to be a great celebration during the year for them and a meaningful part of their faith. But for me personally, it's a meaningless aspect of my faith. To me, the central reality of my faith, and by the way, on this show, I'm often talking about the concepts that I find to be something that impedes the faith that I have. And so I'm often focused on these issues that I'm taking issue with. And I'm not always really talking about my faith. But let me talk about my faith for a moment here. To me, the essence of what Christianity is the realization that I live loved, that I am in union with God, that I'm in union with Christ, that for lack of better words, that I admit that these words are not actually accurate, but for lack of better words, the implications of these words are entirely accurate, and that is this: Christ lives in me. He lives in uh, uh, those who have embraced him. Maybe he lives in everyone. I don't know, but I know, that he lives. He lives in me. He's present with me. I have no clue what he's doing or necessarily thinking. This is more of an issue of proximity than it is of actual communication. And to me, the fact that I live in front of the very breath of God as my life, this is a way of breathing, not a way of thinking. This is the essence of my Christianity. And the risen Christ, as it were, is someone who is for me a moment by moment reality. And I am loved in that. I am accepted. I am embraced. I am assured. And this is how I live my life, comforted and resting in the abiding, the constant abiding. To me, that's what my faith is all about. And stopping something which is, for me, a constant and never-ending reality, to kind of celebrate some sort of an event that is, in various ways, based on the story, related to it, is kind of like a distraction. It's doesn't have any relevance to what we're doing now. And so that's why in my faith, I don't find any personal meaning in it. And so I don't celebrate it as such. I mean, I did celebrate Easter in a sense this morning. I woke up and awesomely on one of our buffet tables, my wife had put together a nice little Easter basket there, and I got some raspberry chocolate smidgens in it and some chocolate eggs. And we also happened to buy some jelly beans, and I ate some of those. They were great. We had a special dinner today. It's fun to have a reason, an excuse to eat badly. We had I cooked some ribeye and strip steaks, and we made some mashed potatoes, and just had a celebratory meal, as a sense. So I guess we celebrated it. But I'll be honest with you, when I was eating those chocolate eggs, when I'm eating the jelly beans, I'm not thinking about this religious concept of Easter in the least. I'm thinking about this day when everybody gets an Easter basket, and so to me, there's the spiritual significance of the day simply doesn't exist, and yet that's just for me a personal thing. I feel that way about all so-called Christian holidays. None of them really mean anything. I'm not bothered by them, but to me, I find that my faith, it has more to do with the ongoing real presence of now. And that is more than sufficient for me spiritually to find meaning and sense in the faith that I have. And so that's pretty much the end of that. But as I look back at this concept of Easter, I found that I was somewhat impressed with the fact that we're always trying to tell a story about Easter and what happened, and we're trying to turn it into something that we're almost historically documenting, which Greg and I even talked about a little bit on the show previously, which I find to be somewhat actually amusing. I don't see that we can really do that from the record that we have. And I don't think that we've necessarily dealt with all the problems. And I'll be honest with you, I'm suspicious that probably what happened was that Jesus was probably crucified in preparation. He happened to be crucified on the day that was a preparation for Passover, but that Passover wasn't taking place on a Saturday. I think Jesus was crucified on a Wednesday, and they had to do a quick job of it in order for them to be done with this before that midweek Sabbath occurred. And so that basically that's why they even went to break the legs of the others on the because they had to respect this Jewish holiday coming up, and so they want to make sure that everybody who was up there on on those crosses was really dead. And so this is when they find Jesus had finally expired. And I think that he was probably placed in the tomb somewhere as evening was approaching, and what we would call Wednesday night, but that they would consider the very beginning of say Thursday. And so they had to get him in there before Thursday because Thursday was going to be the special Sabbath that week. And then Friday they couldn't get to the tomb. The people wanted to take care of him because the guards were placed there. And Saturday they couldn't go because that was another Sabbath. And so the first real chance they got to get back to the tomb was Sunday morning. And then when they got there, they found Jesus was already gone. And so I don't even really see that Jesus rose from the dead on Sunday morning. I think he probably rose Sunday, what we would call Saturday evening. And so, I'm thinking that Jesus was probably in the tomb, what we would call Wednesday overnight, Thursday overnight, Friday overnight, Saturday. That's 3 days and 3 nights. And, and then Sunday comes along, and they can finally get there. And then you can't go there Sunday evening, which is the evening before Sunday, because it's dark. What are you going to get done? But so to me, that's what I'm thinking. But could I be right? Could I be wrong? Sure. Because the truth is that when it comes to the odd little thing about this number 3 in Hebrew culture, the number 3 was often used as a number that was really a whatever number. It was often used in speech that way. If you say, well, it was 3 months and then we they had that expression in that language where 3 months of this and then finally blah 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 happened, where the word 3 there only means there was, I don't know, a certain number of months, and then so 3 was in some ways their catch-all number for 3 years we had this famine and then suddenly we had great plenty. That was in that language an expression of there's a lot of years, a number of years, and it doesn't necessarily literally mean 3. So consequently, when in that language, since they could use the number 3 there, when Jesus is saying 3 days and 3 nights, he could just say, I'm gone a while, be back, when I'm back. And so I see in the language the possibility of taking the word 3 as a figurative description of an undisclosed number of days, as whatever may be necessary. And that means who knows what the calendar may have been or what is even really claimed to be in the text. To be honest with you, in the end, it doesn't even strike me as relevant or necessary or important. I mean, think about it. How could it possibly be important to God that when Jesus dies, that he clicks the stopwatch and says, okay, you gotta be not yet. No, don't rise up yet. Okay, go. When you stop to think about that, that's silly. How could that even be important to God? It doesn't make sense to me. So there's a sense in which these are details that are moot, irrelevant, unimportant, don't have anything to do with anything that is meaningful. I think it's far more meaningful that Jesus came. I think it's far more meaningful that this finally reached a culmination where the trouble that had been caused by his confronting the realities of the traditions of his day had precipitated enough problems that they were ready to get rid of this guy, needed to get rid of him, And they finally found a way of doing it with governmental approval. I tell you, that's the best way to do it. If you need to get rid of somebody, you get the government to do it for you, and that way you're not even breaking the law. You go away scot-free on that one, and that's a great way to take care of the problem. How awesome they found such a wonderful solution. And so they thought they did. And I find that it's significant that in this culmination, that Jesus, who preached, do not resist an evildoer, but the Jesus message of love, and I believe his message of the absurdity of the cult of Yahweh and the absurdity of the ridiculous righteousness and concepts of righteousness, that he's willing to go through with this. And then after all those horrific things, he comes back. He does. He comes back. And I see that as if he's here to say, look, okay, so what is the greatest insult you could do to me if you feel this need to reject me? Okay, let me become something vulnerable, like a person, and then you can kill me. You can murder me. You can get rid of me. The ultimate rejection of another human being is to murder them. It's a really good way of making clear your point that you reject them, I think. And then after all that rejection, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Come back. Hey, tell everybody the good news. The kingdom of heaven is among you. The mystery that Christ is in you, the hope of glory, the wonderful gospel. Hey, God is not having a problem with you. He loves you. He thinks you're awesome. He misses you. He'd love it if you would just, kind of hang around and be with him and abide. And none of that, but if you could know the kind of love that there really is for you and the sort of value that is genuinely perceived by God as yours, this could really help you in dealing with some of the issues you're up against. I think it could be extremely meaningful. This is really good news. And so this is the good news that we are offered after an incident that involves perhaps the greatest insult and rejection of who Jesus is, murdering him, And so to me, it's more important that we are looking at these sets of events as they transpire and to see how this ultimate rejection adds up in the mind of God to mean absolutely nothing. Not an issue. We're not going to deal with that. That's not what we're here for. That's not going to be the problem. We're not even going to make this an issue. And the power of the resurrection is the dismissal of the rejection, the dismissal of the violence. That's the power of the resurrection. This is the power of the moment of even the cross. The fact that we can come to a point of recognizing this ultimate rejection and realizing it adds up to zilch. It adds up to nothing. It adds up to zero. It has nothing to do with what's really relevant in our lives. And so to me, this concept of Easter, though, has been turned into making this an event. Somehow, the presto changeo magic of God, as if the event itself possessed some sort of spiritual power that without this going on, we would be helpless and hopeless. This concept of this power somehow contained in this event is also, in my opinion, a way of denigrating the human being and saying, without this, you're just powerless. Instead of recognizing how wonderfully powerful it is that you are a worthwhile human being and worthwhile to God. And that no matter what the issues or the problems or the difficulties or the misunderstandings, these are just not going to be issues. You are still loved and wonderful from God's standpoint and invited to abide and to just let all of these issues simply no longer have the validity of being issues. If there's problems, we'll work on them. If there's things that need to change, we'll change them. If there's things that need to be figured out, we'll live in the confusion until we figure them out. It doesn't matter. It makes never mind, no difference. This is the good news. This is the power that I see in this message. Now, there may be a lot of people who are, they find that this is a contradiction to the way they understand it. And you know what I find is kind of odd? Now, this may be in some ways kind of self-serving. So I say this with sort of tongue in cheek, but I find it kind of odd that when I talk about, as I understand it, the love of God, and as I understand it, the purpose of how the cross fits into this, and when I think about how the resurrection fits into this, and the unity we have in Christ, when I talk about this to people who are traditionalists, to people who are fundamentalists or evangelicals, or people who buy into this penal substitution, you know what I find? I find in them many times this same deeply being upset with me that the Pharisees and Sadducees had with Jesus. And I'm kind of surprised that they don't see that. They don't see that they're the same religious attitude and spirit that wanted to murder Jesus. I would wonder that if we lived in a different day and time, if these people would want to murder me for not believing in their concept of atonement. For saying the things I say about God, about Jesus, about his love, about how wonderful God thinks you are, and how that's not a denial of the problems, the issues, and the difficulties and the struggles you're going through. Jesus even said, you bring to me your burdens. He realizes that many of us are troubled, confused, lost people. His empathy, his heart goes out to us. He knows what we're up against. And so when I give this message, many of these people who want to make sure that you don't come to God, these are the sons of hell that Jesus was talking about. They put burdens on you, and they become twice the sons of hell as anybody else. They get really upset when people want to make Christ this accessible, when they want to make the love of God this real. They become the same spirit of the people who put Jesus to death. And I saw a picture the other day that I can't remember where it was somewhere on Facebook. And when I saw it, I said, that's it exactly. It was a drawing. I may have even posted it on my page, shared it there. It was a drawing of Jesus beaten and carrying the cross. And the caption underneath it said something to this effect. Let this be a demonstration of what we do to people who contradict our religious traditions. And that's true. I don't understand how anybody who loves Jesus could possibly want anything to do with hating people who contradict what it is they think and believe and say. I mean, you know what? If you can't love them towards an acceptance of what you have to say, that's just too damn bad. That's going to have to be your problem. Don't turn it into theirs. Who the hell are you to make it their problem? And why is it your problem? I don't get it. This doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand this in light of who Jesus is to us, and in light of what the love of God is to us. It doesn't make sense to me. This is insanity. If I could quote our good friend Purcell there, So when we have to come back to Easter and make it an annual celebration of this story, I got to be honest with you, I find this to be almost an offensive distraction to what I understand as a faith of the constant abiding presence of the indwelling Christ, who is the hope that glory is really ours, that our destiny reaches beyond this universe, that it reaches beyond this life, that the essence of who and what I am as a person is something eternal, not just eternal, but really valuable to God. He is so in love with each of us that I'm telling you, we're just making life all the harder by turning it into this religious crap. I'm telling you. And I see Jesus as someone who came along. Many of the statements that Jesus said when he was here, like when he says, I'll tell you this, you're not one jot or tittle will wash away. Uh, there are times when I think you don't realize that Jesus is mocking the uh, the religion of his day. He's saying things in a tone of sarcasm. That is just not to be when we read it as Jesus is not just taking a look at this outward law. He's taking this law and turning it inward, and he's raising the standard even higher. Oh my God, if you think that God is angry with you for having broken a couple of Mosaic laws, you should see how pissed he is that your heart is as black and as dark as it is. Oh my goodness, Jesus came to destroy that, and you want to see Jesus as having come to raise the bar even higher. You think you've been under duress under Moses? Wait till you find out what life is like under Jesus. I'll tell you, you'll be shaking in your boots, Come on. This doesn't work. And so I see in some ways the story we tell about Easter as being in some ways a confrontation and a dismissal and a denial of the real gospel. And I think that it becomes a problem. And that's, I guess, another reason why, for me, I'm not the least bit interested in celebrating it or having anything much to do with it in terms of being a religious holiday, because I'm a believer. And so I don't believe in that crap, because I believe in Jesus. And so that's the way it's working for me. Now, I haven't seen any comments come through yet, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because on Easter, some people are actually doing some things that are probably even more meaningful, like spending time with their family, or if it's possible that people are not sure what to say in response. But anyhow, this is basically some of the ideas that as I understand it, about the notion of Easter and what we do with it, as I understand it. Now, let me just say a few more things about some of these traditions and where they seem to have come from. I really see the entire season of Easter as having been a ploy of the tradition of Christianity at the time, that was feeling like, look, we got to turn all of these people into Christians, and we're having a hard time doing it because they're still making whoopee on all these heathen celebrations, and we can't have that. And so let's see, we can't get them to give up this god Ishtar. We can't seem to get them to stop celebrating some of these pagan holidays. So I'll tell you what, you can't beat them. Let's join them. Let's take their pagan holidays and respin them into some form of a Christian holiday, and we'll just kind of take over. And I think that there's something about that has been an ongoing history of Christian mentality, where we're hoping to spread the gospel through dishonest bait and switch by taking a look at human need and finding that as an opportunity to preach the gospel. It's the soup kitchen mentality. Oh, you're down and out? Come on in. We'll give you a cot to sleep on and a meal, and you got to listen to our message as we preach to you. And to me, this is a manipulative religion, a way of trying to take what's a genuine, honest, real, loving opportunity to develop a relationship with yourself, with spirituality, with God, with your fellow man, and turning it into some sort of religious shibboleth that other people can control through their traditions, their authorities, and what have you. And next thing you know, you're back in that same prison and crap that other people would like to keep you under. That's really a result of the insecurity of a whole bunch of people who are not sure they can survive, particularly if you're going to prove to be some of the competition. And so I find it to be somewhat not only disingenuous, but actually a form of hostility, spiritual abuse. And that's maybe a different way of looking at it, but that's kind of the way that it strikes me. One of the reasons why I've in some ways encouraged others to be spiritually independent of that sort of structure. without being spiritually aloof, unattached. You know, is part of what I understand to be the so-called priesthood of the believer. You are in union with Christ. What do you need from me for that relationship? The answer to that question is this: absolutely nothing. You're fine. That is all you ever need. You can build from that. And guess what? We get to have each other as a way of, comparing notes, um, seeing how it's going, being the skin of Jesus to each other, to physically be there, to give each other a hug and a word of encouragement, an ear of understanding and some empathy and some love in this journey, which is not easy for any one of us. This is the love of God. This is the cup of cold water. This is the visiting in prison. This is the feeding. This is the things that were most important to Jesus. And what were these things most important to Jesus? I could sum it up in one word: you. It's just the way it is. Well, I got to tell you something. I'm looking forward to tonight's broadcast. I really am. And I've really kind of said everything that I've wanted to say about this issue. In some ways, I already said some of it during Greg's show. And we have about 12 minutes left to this show. And I'll tell you, I got some mixed feelings here now. I could sign off now, and then we'll see you again in about 22 minutes. But if I do that, some of you, I don't know if you come back, and I don't want to manipulate to stay here either. But we got about 12 minutes. So let me ask you. Is anything you want to ask me about this? Have I provoked any questions? This would be a great time to bring it up because I'm kind of out of any personal agenda. I don't have much to say. Look at this. We've got awesome. Okay, viewer comment. Mr. Greaves, do you believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead? And if so, why? Also, if you do, then why wouldn't you celebrate Easter as a celebration of this event? Even if your beliefs about the meaning of this event may differ, doesn't it still call for celebration? Well, that's a pretty good question. That's pretty good. Let me put it this way. Yes, I believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead. Why? Well, to be honest with you, that's not an easy question to answer. And I'll be honest with you. My answers are, for me, sufficient. And as far as anybody else, I don't think that they're necessarily compelling. I think you got to think about it for yourself and see if it makes sense to you without being able to make it compelling. Is it something you can kind of settle in and risk on? To me, I see this as consistent with the nature of Jesus being God. I also see it as something that helps to explain the absurd and radical events that took place after this. The fact that these people went about preaching this good news in spite of all the things that were going on, the ways in which history followed after this event strikes me as being consistent with these people having really experienced an event that was radically absurd, such as the resurrection of Christ. Is that a compelling thing? No, I don't think it is. But I suppose in some ways it's really just a bias. I experience myself this sense of a presence of God in my life. I enjoy that presence, and so perhaps this story just kind of fits in with it. I don't know. I'm not interested in defending it. I'm not interested in worrying about it. It's the fact that it can be attacked. That's wonderful. That's fine. So really, when it comes to it, I have no interest in trying to persuade anybody else of it. If they find it meaningful or not, let them be open to it and see what sort of sense it resolves for them. Now, why wouldn't I celebrate Easter as a celebration of this event? Because I celebrate the constant ongoing of Christ present with me every moment. What do I need a special day for this for? So to me, it's not that I don't celebrate this event. It's that I don't see the concept of this holiday called Easter as the celebration of that event. I see that as a tradition that the church developed to try to displace a pagan holiday they didn't like. And I really think that the original celebration of the resurrection was intended to be, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection, and I want to know that right now. And when now becomes, well, now, then I want to know that, well, now, and every time of my life that I stop to think, well, what time is it now? It's always now. So I want to celebrate that resurrection now. And anytime it happens to be now, that's when I'm going to celebrate it. Okay. So I see it in a very different way. So it's not as if I don't celebrate the event. It's that I celebrate it in an entirely different way, I guess. So even if your beliefs of the meaning of the event differ, doesn't it still call for celebration? Oh, absolutely. Sure. To me, it is a great hope. To me, to rest and abide in that constant presence of the love of God is for me the ongoing celebration of just breathing the air. And to me, it's a wonderful celebration. And I celebrate it most by trying to be not only mindful of how much God just adores me, but how much he adores every single human being who happens to be in front of me and everyone who happens to not be in front of me. And to me, that's a great cause of making every interaction that I have with people an opportunity to celebrate the beauty and the wondrousness of our being his children, of our being made in his image, and of our being so worthy of his love and of his desire that we be fully restored and brought into the fullness of what we can be through his love. That's to me what every moment of connection is in some ways energized by, and what validates it as being genuine and authentic, that human beings are just valuable people and worthy of the kind of love and care and empathy and attention that you can give them. So I guess it's that we're looking at it. Comment, Bob. Joey promised us that you would do an Easter Bunny finger puppet show for everyone today. He's lying. But that sounds like a great idea. An Easter Bunny finger puppet show for everyone today. Okay, well, let's see if I can make something up on. Hello, Bob. Hi there, Easter Bunny. What do you want to do? That was delicious. I told people I was going to make a rabbit stew today, and that what I wanted to know is what sort of things work well dipped in chocolate, because the rabbit stew is going to be in a fondue pot, and it's going to be, chocolate bunnies. But anyhow, that's my Easter Bunny finger puppet show for everyone today. I don't actually have any finger puppets of the Easter Bunny, although I do have I got some finger puppets of like Shrek, and I got some finger puppets of the various different Angry Birds. They're fun, but no Easter bunnies, so I guess I can't do that. Anyhow, here we are. We got about 6 minutes left. Any other comments or questions about Easter? And by the way, I don't know who asked that one question, but I that was a great question. Do you believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead? Don't understand my dismissal of tradition as a dismissal of the issues that even tradition itself founded itself upon. I think that we need to recognize that in our faith, that the rituals that we develop are a representation of a different reality. And these rituals are never that reality itself. If we can't go through the rituals and the traditions to really celebrate the reality, then the rituals are meaningless and they become nothing but routines that we use as a test of orthodoxy. And that is nothing but a way of judging your fellow man in a manner that is totally unacceptable in my opinion. So anyway, we got about 5 minutes, so I'm curious. Any other comments that you can drum up? How about some totally irrelevant moot questions on some other topic? I'm willing to do that, because I don't know what else I can say about Easter, and I have no idea what Dr. Jones is going to hope to talk about tonight entirely. But I'll tell you this. Well, a couple of things I'm planning on bringing up is I talked to Cindy McCoy. Some of you may know her, and I'm interested in actually bringing her on to my show and have her talk about her experience, her journey. And to be honest with you, I have no idea how much she and I do or don't think alike, but she's got a wonderful story, and she's just a wonderful person. I really like her to come on and sometime get an opportunity to just share her story and have you get to know her. And so I've talked to her about it, and we haven't actually set up an exact date, but she seemed to like the idea. If you have any other people that you think would be great to have, okay, it says here I missed a comment. Okay, I don't think Jesus intended for us to take a day to celebrate his rising from the dead, but rather enjoy every day what he has done for us. And I would add to that what he is doing. Now is now. The past is useful for a reference, I suppose. The future isn't here yet, and we don't really know what it's going to be. I don't think that means let's not be so foolish as to not plan for its likelihood. But I think that the present moment is one of the most important moments we've ever had and ever will have, is the present moment. So even celebrating the present moment as an extension of all that has been done and where this has all been leading. What have you? Another person that I know that Greg Bray is going to have on his show, I believe even maybe next week, and I'm interested in having her on my show at some point in time. Is Sarah? I think it's a McCullough. I can't remember what her last name is, but talked with her a bit briefly as well. And she works with an organization that's interested in helping people who are recovering from spiritual abuse. And one other thing I might talk to you while we're sitting here, Sharon, I've already begun working on editing and putting together the outline and some of the content of a book I'd like to put together based on my talk on Just Who Do You Think You Are, where the book will be based upon helping us to reconstruct a sense of who it is we think we are, particularly looking at some of the difficulties we can have in answering that question after we've been somewhat debilitated by spiritual abuse. So I haven't come up with an entire usable subtitle to it, but the main title would be Just Who Do You Think You Are? And I've already begun editing that. I'm hoping it turns out to be something useful and meaningful to those of you who get a chance to read it later. Anyhow, well, there we are. I'm kind of spun out, enjoying chatting with you, and I could talk forever. But anyhow, so here we go. We got about a minute, but I'm going to sign off anyway. And thank you for listening. Appreciate your being here. I'm Bob Greaves. They call me the Unconventional Pastor. And I'll probably actually see you in about 10 minutes or so as Dr. Jones comes on. And we talk with a number of people about a variety of issues. I understand he's going to have a few atheists there. And we're going to talk about some of the issues related to today. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, stick around in just a moment. On this very stage at NCG Studios, Dr. Michael W. Jones, Rhonda Jones, along with members of the Free Thinkers Group of Pensacola, Florida, Greg Bray on Skype, Bob Greaves on Skype, and yours truly on the stage. Won't that be a treat? It's happening in just a few minutes, so don't leave us.